Jennings. I'm the chair of the Public Art Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 2 o'clock on Tuesday, March 10th. We are in the media room on the second floor of City Hall. Marissa, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Meals?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Ms. Jennings?
Here.
Ms. Eckmeyer?
Jules Eichmeyer is excused due to post-surgery recovery.
Right. Mr. Iwanu?
Here.
Ms. Gregory?
Here. And our new member, Michaela Oberlander, will be sworn in at the April 14th meeting. We do have a quorum. Okay, our guests today, if you would just give your names, please.
Coach Vaticulis. Deputy Chief Craig Meisner. Jeff Young, Major, Totten Springs Police Department.
Chief Coach in Totten Springs Police Department.
Okay, welcome, everyone. Okay, has everyone had a chance to go over the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
Moved.
Bill?
A second.
I have a correction, if I may.
Certainly.
I made a really complicated statement last meeting under new business on the BOC section, page 6, paragraph 1 and paragraph 4 were my statements. I'd like to submit this amendment. It was,
Okay,
which is what I said, although in a far more complicated way.
okay, all right. I'd like to read the amendment that Lucianne has submitted. Page 6, new business, BOC, first and fourth paragraphs. Please eliminate the two paragraphs as they now stand and substitute this wording. Ms. Robinson noted that Commissioner Carr had mentioned a list of projects he favored and asked for a consensus from the BOC. In response, the mayor stated a consensus had already been reached. Ms. Robinson noted that the consensus had come at the May 2019 work session on public art and stated that this list should be incorporated into future planning sessions. Okay. Marissa, at the end of the meeting, I'll give you the exact wording.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept as amended?
I make a motion that it be amended.
Okay, and do I hear a second? Bill?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted as amended. Okay, old business. The discussion of Artist Alley and the mural application process. I think we might finally be seeing some daylight on this project. At the Thursday, March 6th unveiling of a Christopher Still mural on the Macris building, which houses the Tarpon Springs Chamber of Commerce, I met Pat Del Bracco of Speed Pro, a company that manufactures large art appliques. Speed Pro produced the applique of the Christopher Still mural. I'm meeting with Pat tomorrow, March 11th, at the library to discuss the process and pricing of his various applique options. This technique may solve the liability insurance issues that have been plaguing our Artist Alley and other small mural projects. The appliques can be installed by businesses that already have appropriate liability in place, as they were done on the Macris building. They had, they had a company there who was up on a scaffold who applied the applique. I also spoke to the individual who took the photograph of the original Christopher Still painting, which is in the library. He called the process a capture. It's a very high-resolution process. He does not charge that much money. I know that Chris Still is extremely meticulous about his work and the portrayal of his work. I don't know whether we need to recreate that process for our murals, because I don't think they're going to be that complex or the artists will be that demanding as to color matching, details, et cetera. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But Does anyone else have any comments or questions about the process and what it is?
So that eliminates the liability insurance for the artist because Speed Pro is taking it on?
Yeah. Basically, the artist would create the mural. The PAC would purchase the mural, and then it would go to Speed Pro. They would generate the applique and install it on the building. So the artist is taken out of the installation process altogether, which was why they needed the liability insurance. So I know many of us were at the unveiling of the mural, and I did speak to City Manager LaCouris, and he seemed very enthusiastic about the process. So as I said, I'm going to get some more details tomorrow when I meet with Mr. Del Baracco, and I'll probably send a message or a memo to Diane as to the, the upshot of the conversation. And, oh, right, in your packets, there is
Handout.
included a printout of an email of the, I spoke to George Cott of Eagle Fine Art Imaging. He was the one who did the photographic capture, and then there's Speed Pro. So,
Joan, you might want to ask him if you see down there on that very bottom paragraph that I put in blue. It said that it can stay planted up to 7 years. You might want to ask him when you talk to him if, that depends on the surface that it's adhered to,
right.
just
Yeah,
out of
that's,
curiosity.
thanks for emphasizing that, Diane. That's a good point. I know that with the Artist Alley murals, we weren't looking for that longevity. I'm sure a 7-year lifespan is more than, we were anticipating, because we did want to, change them out and make them, constantly more attractive to people to go visit.
The only concern I have with this, that I just read through it, are these going to be able to withstand like outside elements like rain, wind, stuff like that? Because seeing it, it says like hallways, rooms, stuff like that, and like a 7-year lifespan may be for like inside. I'm just curious, maybe they have, if they do outside, and what the specs on that are. I think
Right,
that should be taken into consideration.
Okay,
too.
yeah, thanks, Theo. I'll definitely ask him that, but I seem to get the impression from the Christopher Still mural that there is some kind of protective coating that they put over the applique.
Yeah. there it
And,
is.
for something like that, they do want a lot of longevity. But, sorry. The other beauty of this is that once the image is captured and put on file, it can be recreated. So, I mean, if for some other reason, we get Hurricane Theo coming through and, the murals get trashed, we can reproduce them. So that's another thing we have to consider.
Quick question, Jim.
Sure, Bill.
Did they prep the surfaces then? Because I saw they did a fair amount of that work on the building
Yeah.
before they.
Right, I think either, I have to find out more from him tomorrow, but either Speed Pro itself does the installation, or they have a company that does the installation and they do prep the wall. So, but I will,
Because I'm sure not all the surfaces we're looking at in that alley are in as good a shape as the one
Right.
they applied to.
and I think, Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have a heat process. It's actually almost like,
It seals it.
yeah, it's like heat
Like a
sealed
shrink.
onto the yeah, like a shrink wrap.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I think, as I said, I'm very enthusiastic that this will finally get the Artist Alley project going. Speaking of getting projects going, Bill, you want to update us on the containers?
Not a whole lot to tell since our last meeting. I do need to get our artists together with Department of Public Works. So, Diane, if I could get the contact information and email for Director of Public Works, that would be an assist. By next meeting, I will have everybody together. And what we want to do is get those two to make sure that the functionality of the piece of art will work as recycling and is okay by the standards of Department of Public Works.
Okay, any discussion on the trash containers? Okay, moving on to the illuminated art boxes is another area of good news. Diane told me she received a communication from Porta Boards indicating that the first prototype art box should be arriving within the foreseeable future. And Public Works will install it on a light pole on the sponge docks, and we will troubleshoot it. The box will contain an artwork that was submitted by Theo, and, we're thrilled. That was the whole purpose of this, is to encourage, young and student artists. Okay, Diane, did you hear anything more from him?
No, just that apparently whatever the apparatus was to put it around the pole, when it was sent to them, it was too small. So they sent it back, and he said it probably set it back like about a week. So it should be, I would think it'd be shipping this week. So I'll
Excellent,
check with him again, make sure that nothing has happened.
okay. And, all right, new business, and I think that's why many of the gentlemen in the audience are here. Discussion of the public safety facility. The Board of Commissioners, at its February 28th meeting, approved a major art project for the public safety facility. The PAC will issue a call to artists for concepts and media and appoint a jury consisting of a PAC member who will chair the jury, Chiefs Cochin and Scott, or their designates. The site at the front of the PSF on Huey Avenue contains steel from the Twin Towers, which will be preserved and incorporated into the art project. The PAC will also do an outreach to various community organizations and individuals for donations to support the projects and supplement the PAC funding. So, gentlemen, is there anything you'd like to present or add?
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. Chief Cochin, Tarpon PD. So we've kind of talked about this in the past. The commission sanctioned it at that meeting, specifically Commissioner Carr did. So really, we're reaching out to you. I've already designated Major Young as kind of like the PD liaison, and I don't know who Chief Young may or may not designate, but my advice would be to keep the jury small. Sometimes small committees are more effective at working and getting things done, but obviously this committee will be involved, city staff will be involved, and I believe it's going to be a long-term project. It's not going to happen overnight. I would assume that there'd have to be, donations and all that stuff, but, we take this thing step by step and do it methodically, but I think it's going to be a great project, and it's a great way to honor, that, we call it the Public Safety Memorial Gardens, but it's a great way to honor the site and a great way to keep 9/11 in our memory. So, and that's what this is all about. So,
All right,
if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
yeah. Do you know if you're going to be the fire department designate from Chief Young? Oh, great, okay.
So it'll be definitely Chief Miser. Then you've
Okay.
been selected.
Never leave the room. Okay.
I was not aware of this. I was sort of out of touch last week, but could you tell us very specifically what the BOC sanctioned in terms of public art funding? Just what specifically
Well, those are all the
did
big
they say?
questions as we move forward. At the meeting, and I knew what he was talking about. Commissioner Carr specifically said that he wanted the commission to move forward with asking you guys to do a public art piece at the public safety facility. And what we really meant was the memorial gardens, because we had talked about it. So that's kind of what he meant, moving forward with an art piece at our public safety memorial garden, specifically on the left side. The Twin Towers that we have there now are basically in decay. And we were given an actual piece, a piece of metal of the towers themselves, and that's starting to decay. So that's where we're really focusing, this project on.
So the date of this meeting was February 28th?
Ms.
Yes.
Chairwoman, you have, yes. Okay.
Last week, last Tuesday?
Correct. Several weeks ago, correct?
Yeah,
February,
I think it was the prior
Are you talking about January 28th? the night that you
January
made
28th,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Your presentation?
Thank you, I'm sorry, thanks for the correction, Lucianne.
My memory watching that was that he did ask for a consensus on a laundry list of projects, including public safety, and the mayor declined, saying that that had already been done at the May workshop. So I think we need to be very careful with this because it'll be a very long, expensive project. And my viewing of that meeting was that it was not a specific directive, that it was a part of a list of projects that he was interested in. And I think we ought to take that along with everything else and plow it into our work session on the master plan so that we are looking at the broad picture of what everybody in the city favors in terms of public art.
Right. I
We-
did, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
No, finish, Lucianne, I'm sorry.
We have a lot of raw material right now to go into our work session, which is going to be sometime this month. Paramita's graphics were incredibly impressive last meeting. We need time to look at those and to zero in on locations. We're directed by our ordinance to create a master plan which prioritizes locations for public art. I think this certainly needs to go into the hopper. But I don't believe we've been directed specifically to do this by the BOC at this point.
Okay, I had a meeting recently with Chief Cochin, Diane, and Mark Licouris. And speaking to your point, the city manager is going to specifically request from the BLC a firmer delineation of what they want to see done. So
In general or specifically on this?
specifically on the PAC, because it was very confusing, and I think that came up at our last meeting when Mark was here, that, what was approved or what wasn't approved. The thing is that we can still, kind of lay the groundwork for doing this. And then it ultimately will have to go to the BLC. And there's, the other, if you look at 3B on our agenda, it's develop a protocol to secure BLC approval for just such a project. So I think right now, we're kind of getting the process and the infrastructure in place. We kind of, to some extent, maybe have put the cart before the horse, but the horse is not going anywhere. And, but I think what we have to do is, as I said, Mark is willing to bring this up for, formal, a BOC blessing. And, go ahead.
You're reiterating, I think, what I mean and maybe didn't say, but I think we need to put the brakes on until we do our master plan, hopefully next order of business. This certainly needs to be a consideration at that point. And it seems to me that the ordinance directs us to do a master plan, prioritizing locations for projects that then goes to the BOC for their nay or yay. So I think the process is already in place. And that our job now is to go do that master plan, considering all of the suggestions from staff, from BOC members, from other members of the community.
Well, I think the one area in which this differs from what's described in the ordinance is specifically the creation of a jury. So that would be part of the materials that would go to the BLC when we present to them.
The ordinance does spend a lot of time describing the jury process.
Right, but it doesn't specify what projects are juried. So that's what, I want to make sure that this is a juried project.
I think we can include that in our master plan specification.
Okay. And Chief, do you have any comments?
No, obviously, that discussion is amongst yourselves, obviously, but the city manager will go to the commission on the 28th, and we'll kind of clarify exactly what they meant. But I will tell you for the record, Commissioner Carr specifically meant the public safety memorial site, because he had talked to me about it, and he's very interested in seeing that done. Now, again, on the 28th, the city manager will clarify all of that. So whatever direction this committee decides to do, and we're just your liaison, so we have pieces in place. If you decide to move forward and commit a jury, we have pieces in place that are ready to go. It really is a good project. It's an honorable project. There are 5 officers that have been killed. Their names are on that site. It's a worthy project. But again, we're here to facilitate. We're here to help. And whatever direction you guys decide to go in, we're here to help you.
Okay.
So the 28th, that's another meeting?
Another commission meeting, correct?
Okay.
Okay. And I think the city manager may run it past us again before he actually takes it to the, for fine tuning before he takes it to the BOC.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that's going to be on the agenda,
Right.
for him to discuss that with the commission.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Okay. Certainly, Costa.
Costa Vaticiotis. I don't think there's any question to the merits or the project itself. I don't think that's even an issue. I think that everybody would want that. I think what the issue is for me is that I've heard this committee talk at other times, more on one occasion, about the NIAIDs, using that as an example of how much work was put into the NIAIDs, thinking that that was actually direction coming from the commission as a whole. And then after, 9 months or 10 months, you took your work to the commission, and the commission says, no, this isn't what we wanted. And so I just want to remind everybody of that. And then I think that the process that needs to be laid out, I think, has to be actually tailored to what is expected as far as the project goes itself, whether it's juried, who's involved, such as, and this is going to be a special project involving both the police and the fire departments. But I think there needs to be some time spent in organizing that. I think the chief has done his part with Captain Young and also the assistant fire chief in getting them involved. So that's set up on his end. And now I think the commission at some point needs to understand what it is that's being proposed. I think I appreciate Commissioner Carr's comment, but I was at that meeting too. And I know, Chief, you and I have had several conversations as far as what he really said. And my point is, if you know what Commissioner Carr said, but you had to ask him about it, I'm not sure how the other commissioners would know what Commissioner Carr was talking about unless somebody asked him about that as well, which would violate the Sunshine Law. So I think that there needs to be some clarification on the part of Commissioner Carr for the benefit of the commission as a whole. And if the city manager would like to do that at some point in the future, sure, certainly that's within his prerogative. But in April, I'm going to be up there, and I'd like to understand a little more about this project than just the entire committee moving along without any kind of plan in place as far as what exactly are we talking about, what the jury. What kind of jury do we need? Is it going to be a sculpture? Is it going to be something else? I don't really know. But I just think from an organizational perspective, and that would be something that and I'm not sure, to be honest with you, the timing of the master plan, but I think that's something that needs to be discussed together if what I'm saying makes sense from an organizational perspective. So if it's the cart before the horse, that's fine, but just remember the last time the cart was put before the horse, the committee spent an awful lot of time, and it wasn't until way late until they found out that's not what was wanted. And then, to be honest with you, the end result of the project was not anything, was a little less than what if this guidance had been put in at the very beginning would have turned out much nicer, because we wasted an awful lot of time on two artists with their concepts. And I don't think we had them at our disposal after that. And I think there was a scramble to kind of take into account what the commission wanted at that time. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
Madam Chairman, if I may.
sure.
So, yeah, a lot of good points were raised here. You know, you could do it both ways. You could put the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart, however you want to say it. I agree with a lot of things that Mr. Vadakios just said. However, sometimes things can be simple in life. So my view is that the process will be defined by the commission. That's not our realm, and this Public Arts Committee. But we're never going to know what we're going to do there until we start the process, until we start moving forward. And that process is gauged by the commission giving you directive. However, this committee decides to do it. I totally agree with that. We don't get involved in that. But we have the pieces in place once you decide how you want to move forward to get this going. And I do view it as a long-term project, and I do view it as a step-by-step process. And I do view it that you'll be going back to the commission, updating them on concepts, because we're never going to know until ultimately do a call for artists what's going to go there. So, you know, don't let that stop you. You know, we do, if this is a project that's embraced, we need to move forward. And you know what, if you make mistakes along the way, we take a step back, we adjust it, and we move forward. You know, we've been very successful with the police department. You know, it's always that move forward philosophy. And if you make a mistake, you back up, you correct it. But the goal is to always move forward. So, but anyway, we're here to assist, and whatever you and the commission want, we're here to be your liaisons and get it done.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone? Okay, we'll just keep this on our radar screen. Okay. Moving on to the next item, develop a protocol to secure BOC approval for projects proposed by groups or individuals prior to consideration by the PAC. It's kind of what we've been talking about. The PAC feels that while it might suggest projects and initiatives, other major projects from community organizations or individuals should obtain prior approval of the BOC before being undertaken by the PAC. And again, reflecting what Costa said, I've come to call this the Naiads fiasco, because we did spend a significant amount of time, work, and effort, as did the artists involved, on a project that was deemed to be unacceptable to the BOC. Okay, working with Diane, the city clerk, and the city attorney, will prepare a project application form that we could use to bring projects formally before the BOC for approval. Okay, if the BOC does not approve the project, it will not be considered by the PAC. How does everybody feel about that?
I think that's a good partial approach, but again, I go back to the fact that if we have developed a master plan and prioritized areas for project, and that has been taken to the BOC and approved or not approved, that is kind of the umbrella that we then operate under.
Okay, well, it seems that, oh, I'm sorry, I missed a point. The updated general guidelines and master plan under old business. I think that, as Lucianne keeps mentioning, we really have to get this polished off at a workshop. And I know that we did a lot of work on it last year. We had something, I think, that was on the verge of going to the BOC. I think it was vetted by the city attorney, and we just have to go back and re-examine it. So, so I think, does anybody have any suggestions or about a date in April, early April, for a workshop? Want to check your calendars and see what might fit?
Would it be on a Tuesday or any day? Does that make a difference?
Chief, I think, would have to determine when the room would be available.
Yes, Madam Chairman, if you could possibly give a couple dates, that would help me, because then I'll get with Judy and we'll tell you what dates we can do.
Okay.
And if you will, if you can get a couple dates, I can go over there as you, continue your meeting, and I can come back and tell you what dates
Right.
we'll actually be available for.
Okay, I know that, I think around the end of March, we start, does anybody know the date of Easter this year? It's not showing up on my calendar.
The 12th, April 12th.
Okay, so maybe we might give some thought to doing it toward the end of March?
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
I
then
think it'd
we-
be smarter to do it in March because Catholic Easter and Orthodox Easter.
Right, we have to start running into, right, Easter and Holy Week.
And your next meeting in April is on the 14th.
Right. So, let's see, today is the 10th. How's the 24th looking for everybody? March 24th?
Is there something that makes Tuesdays the day, or is that just?
Nothing, no, nothing really. I mean, the actual meetings are determined,
Right.
but we could schedule the workshop any day of the week,
Later that week would be better for me, but
okay?
I agree.
I'm open all that whole week,
Okay.
so I'm good.
You want to do the 26th Thursday? Oh, I can't do it. 27th Friday?
Fridays
Okay,
are work days
yeah.
for me, so I work all day Friday and Saturday.
You work all day Friday and Saturday.
Wednesday
Anytime
the-
that week except the 25th would be fine with me.
What about the 31st?
That's,
Is that, by Easter? No.
31st I had. Okay.
31st
that'd
is
be
good
all
for
right.
me.
That'd
See,
be
Works
okay
for me,
too.
yeah.
Bill, 31st, Lucianne, 31st? Yep. March 31st?
Oh, wait a minute. No, I cannot do it on the 31st.
30th?
30th is okay.
That's good for me too.
30th, Lucianne? Chief, you want to check on March 30th?
Yeah, and the good thing is, it would be after the 24th commission meeting. I think I may have said the 28th before, sorry about that.
All right, that's all
But
right.
that's when the city manager will be going before the commission, to try and
Right.
get that clarification. All right, so the 30th at 2?
Yep,
Okay.
here, 30th at 2, thank you. Okay. And does anybody have any feelings about the time?
About the what?
Time?
2 o'clock?
2 o'clock is
Yeah.
good for
I think-
everybody?
Late afternoon
Yeah,
is
and I
fine.
think we ought to allow enough time to really look at all the materials we have. And can we have access somehow to all of Paramita's overlays?
I was gonna say, can GIS be part of that meeting as well?
Ask.
Okay.
And again, we could do morning or afternoon, but I think you probably need at least 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours.
Because the last time we worked on this, we went close to 4
I was
hours.
gonna say, it's gonna take some time.
I can't do anything before 12. I'm in class.
Okay.
I'm
So
thinking
after
maybe 1
12.
o'clock, that'll give us an
That's
extra
what
hour
works for me,
going
yeah.
1
forward.
o'clock would be
1
great.
o'clock, okay. Yep.
I have a meeting that morning at 10. I don't, hopefully it would be over by that time.
Yeah, well, if you're a few minutes late, it's not,
Okay.
yeah, that'll still be okay. Yeah, because I'd sooner push it forward a little bit to give us more
Yeah,
time to, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because as I said, usually, the last time we did this, it was a line by line, and it took a while, so. Okay. All right, we'll wait for the chief to come back.
Are you talking about general guidelines and master plan, or
Yes.
just master plan?
Yes, priority on master plan,
Master plan kind of gets into the nitty-gritty, correct?
right?
Okay. How about conceptually? I mean, it sounds like, you've got a couple of things that are taking it back and forth between the PAC and the BOC and, those other folks. It seems like we're trying to create a pipeline here, if you will, of how things will flow through the process. Would it be beneficial, before we get into the nitty-gritty of each line item, to really come up with a concept of how we see that functioning? And then your master plan then supports that flow. Is that worthy of and maybe that's just the logistics of the agenda for that meeting, is that we talk a little bit or spend some time up front talking about, how we're looking for things to flow through the,
Right.
So the guidelines being
support that.
the process.
Correct.
And then the master plan being the actual, we want something here, here, and here.
Right.
Would you two like to take some of that on to maybe bring some thoughts to the workshop?
Can. I'm trying to figure out how we facilitate that without, infringing on the sunshine. Yeah, we've got a fair amount of work that seems to be needed up front before we can make any headway.
Right.
And I'm not sure how we do that with the limited amount of time we have in this meeting, and then the inability to communicate otherwise.
Right. Chief, how are we looking?
So you're good for March 30th at 2:00.
Okay,
It's on the calendar as a work session.
okay.
While you were gone, we
We
changed
changed
it
it to
to
1
1.
o'clock, is that all right? Do you know?
Fine.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Okay.
Thank you again, Chief. Okay. So, Bill, do you want to maybe just do some talking points? The thing is that, as you said, we're so bound by the sunshine laws.
We
Our
are.
only choice is to do this in a
This is the
workshop
only
setting.
time we can really talk and get some communication, and I'm not sure how we get some of the bigger concepts of what we want to see happen with the flow of the workflow. I mean, I can take a stab at some things that we can talk about at that meeting, but, I don't feel comfortable talking to anybody, in between the meetings.
Yeah, well, you can.
Right.
Yeah, but as I said, you seem to have an idea of what direction this should be taking in terms of, talking points and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the only thing I lack is the institutional knowledge of how this has always worked in some of the, so I can bring some concepts, but I don't know that I completely understand our process yet, being so new to this.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great point. Joan, may I? One of the things I just wanted to mention to you all, because a lot of you are so new, the last time that the Public Art Committee reviewed this, what they did with the guidelines is they took out a lot of the outdated information that was in there and just kind of tightened it up quite a bit. And then we sent the guidelines and the master plan to the city attorney, and he reviewed them. He didn't really have a problem with the guidelines as much as he felt like the master plan was lacking. So, that might be something that you kind of take a look at, maybe the guidelines again, since you all have new eyes to kind of take a look at it from before. But I think it's the master plan where you need to kind of decide, some more specifics or whatever.
Right.
So lacking in specificity?
It was just too general.
Well, one of the things that we deleted were all of the original organizational points because we're organized. So we felt there was no point in leaving in all the, structural things. It's just like, the foundation's been laid. We're not going to lay yet another foundation because it's there already. And I think the city attorney felt that by deleting all of that material, it kind of weakened it a bit. But again, I think we need to go back to him and find out exactly what he felt the weaknesses were, because so much time has passed since we did
Right.
this. I mean, we did this at the June meeting last year. And I know that it went through a number of edits for formatting,
Right.
and then it sort of got lost in the turmoil of losing so many of the original members and reappointing people, as Diane said, so, and as you said, the institutional knowledge of what we've done. So we've basically back to square one.
I kind of look at a master plan as creating the current in the stream so that when things come in, it's like they just get part of that stream. And if it doesn't belong there, it starts shooting off because it's not part of our plan. So I think we need to, I think Lucianne has made mention of this a number of times because it helps you make some of those tougher decisions because that's a great idea, but it's not part of our master plan. We'll have to revisit that. And it keeps you on course with the current.
Okay. So everybody's got a lot of homework to do? Lucianne?
If we have ideas, can we send them to Diane and is it okay for then those to become part of the package we get before the meeting? Is that crossing the line?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea where the lines are.
Yeah. Believe that's acceptable.
Part of agenda. Yeah, part of agenda. We could check.
Check.
Yeah, because I know informational
Because
exchange.
it has to be shared like that, otherwise we come into
Exactly.
that meeting and you're seeing it for the first
Right.
time, and it's like we can't make any traction that way.
As long as it's informational and no
Discussion.
Just,
committee meeting, member responds to it,
Right,
then that's fair game. I communicate with the rest of the BOC that way. I specifically say do not respond to it,
right.
but they already have it in hand.
well, it was kind of like when we took meetings at the, Joan and I and, I think it was Sherry Orr, so we took notes at the BOC workshop, kind of thing. And then we compiled all three of them and sent it out, kind of thing, because it was just informational, so
Right.
thank you, yeah. So I believe, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like if you will take a look at it, maybe make some bullets about some things, and then send it directly to me, then I could compile them similar to what I did on the Excel file with when you all were looking at different cities and what their insurance requirements are. That way, I can compile it all together and then get it back to you all so you can review it before the next meeting
Right.
or before the workshop.
Right.
How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think, as Costa pointed out, I think the kind of, the issue is response with either a discussion point or an opinion, especially an opinion.
Right.
So the best course of action is just not respond. And, that's the one.
That's really hard.
I know.
It is a very challenge.
Well, I keep repeating myself on this. This committee is, art and all of this thrives on communication, and we can't. So, it's not like the other committees where they have very strict ordinances to follow, and that, the whole idea of the committee meeting is the application of the ordinances, and, we're working with art projects. Okay, speaking of art projects, also in your package, there is a printout of a piece of art that's being installed in Tampa International Airport. And they are spending millions and millions of dollars in artwork for the airport. And I don't know if you guys saw it, it's a giant flamingo that looks like he's feeding underwater.
So cool.
And it's made of resin. And I think they're spending upwards of, I think it was $250,000 on this.
Wow.
So, it's kind of interesting to look what other people are doing and what they're spending. And we're tightening our belts a lot more than that, so. But anyway,
We don't have the revenue of the airport.
no, we don't. No, we don't. Okay. Diane, any city announcements?
No.
Okay. Any additions to the agenda for April? Oh, also in your packets, there's the Public Art Committee brochure. And last year, we decided to print them in-house for this very reason, so that they're easy to update. So if you want to take a look at it, if you want to change the design, any of the pictures, we can talk about that next month. Leo?
Just quick, my last
I
name is
misspelled
spelled,
your name.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it, but
Mine is also not a capital.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
This is so important.
Okay. All right, so we'll fix the names and, but the design of it, anybody have any comments about the illustrations that are used, the photographs? We can take that up next month and give you a chance to think about it. Okay, our next regular meeting is April 14th at 2:00 here in the media room. Our workshop to discuss the master plan and the general guidelines is scheduled for March 30th, a Monday at 1:00, also here. Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Lucy, and second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned at 2:45. Thank you all.
I have a non-public art announcement to make, if I may.
Sure.
Working on the Fine Arts Festival this weekend, sponsored by the Chamber. I coordinate the artists for that event, and I am looking for people to work midday and afternoon shifts, Saturday and Sunday, to provide relief for artists who need to take a short break. We call them artist hosts, booth sitters, whatever. But if any of you are interested in signing up for a slot, it's a very interesting way to see the show because you're actually in communication with the artists that you're helping out. So any takers, I'm here to take.
Okay,
Joan, may I ask?
sure.
I just want to add one thing. If you are going to send me, your thoughts on the guidelines and everything, if you can do that, earlier than later, because that workshop is on a Monday, and I have a huge event in Craig Park on the 28th, the Art of Health, on Saturday, so that's going to take up, pretty much my entire weekend. So if you could get it to me beforehand, I'd really appreciate it, so I can compile it correctly.
Why don't you give
for
us
you.
a deadline, Diane? That works.
The Thursday before the 28th, if possible.
Okay.
Because Friday, I'm going to be out at Craig Park all day, so setting up. And I hope you all will come. That's it, thank you.
Okay, that would be the 26th. The deadline is 3/26.
Thank you.
Okay, I will keep the, I'm certain the same people will move to adjourn in second, but now our adjournment time is 2:47. Thank you all.